Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday, we have SD Kidou Senshi Gundam 2, a 1993 Super Famicom title. What kind of SD taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. There are a couple modes that we can select between here for Gundam 2. We've got Versus mode, where you'd face off against another player, 2-player mode, and 1 player. We'll just be playing 1 player today. As we select 1 player, we're taken to the mobile suit select screen. Here we can choose between the 3 mobile suits available for us. We've got the Gundam Mark II, the Zeta Gundam, and the Hyakushiki. Now, the mobile suit selection is very important. It not only determines what mobile suit you'll be playing as, but it also determines the route you'll be taking through the game. So, for our purposes today, we'll take the Zeta Gundam. We select our mobile suit, we select Start, and we launch. SD Gundam 2, one moment. It have passed 7 years after finished the war between Zion Dukedom and the Union of the Earth. So, SD Gundam 2 covers the events of Zeta Gundam. So, throughout the course, we're fighting these SD mobile suits. So, SD stands for, if you believe the canon, Superior Defender, but it can also mean Super Deformed. So we're fighting with these SD Gundams that are from the Zeta Gundam anime, and it takes place in the major battles that happen throughout that anime. So if you're familiar with the plot of that, you might know a little bit about what we would encounter. As far as the enemies that we're fighting the green mobile suits are called Zakus, and the white mobile suits are GM2s to be precise. Anyway, there are 2 types of stages in SD Gundam 2. A space stage, like the one we're in. Here we have the ability to move around the entire stage, shoot, and we can also turn the mobile suit to face the other direction. There's also a terrestrial type stage, where the button to turn your mobile suit is replaced by a jump, a double jump even, which is definitely handy, and we'll see that here in just one moment. So here we're on a terrestrial stage. We're not flying around, but rather we're running on the ground. Still, the game does auto-scroll though, so if you just sit at the back of the screen, it will push you. As far as attacks are concerned, the default weapon is the Vulcan cannon on the head of the Gundam. But we do have a meter in the bottom left that charges up, and as it charges up, we have the ability to select between other weapons, like the beam rifle. We also have a beam bazooka. And then for the Zeta Gundam, it can transform into its Wave Rider form. For the other 2 mobile suits, they have both the beam cannon and the beam bazooka as well, but then they have a special ability in the 3rd slot. For the Gundam Mark II, it's not very exciting, it's just a shield, but for the Hyakushiki, you equip a mega bazooka, a beam bazooka, which sounds awesome, but it's really not great, as it takes forever to charge, making it problematic to use in this type of setting. We've also been picking up power-ups throughout the course of the game, little Hado heads that give us health, additional items in charge, or even a special weapon. I'm not 100% sure what the special does for the Zeta Gundam. Looks like it might slow down the enemies and the enemy shots. Let's activate its special Wave Rider form. We become a jet that can't turn around. That's unfortunate. So we are at our first boss. This is the mobile suit Geplant. It has 2 forms. Its mobile armor form, where it transforms into a jet, and its mobile suit form. So one thing to note, we also have a beam saber attack that activates at close range, but I can't actually control when it goes off. It's our highest... It deals the highest amount of damage of any attack weapon that we have available, but with its with the inability to easily control when it goes off, it's hard to use. But that's the strategy of fighting the bosses, is you want to get in close to use your beam saber. Here we saw a shot of the two motherships from this particular part of the Zeta Gundam story, the Argama and the Radish, I believe. We find ourselves back in space, fighting more Zakus in GM2s. Huddle! Actually, let's go with the Beam Bazooka for a little bit. Now we're getting attacked from the bottom and the top by some Marasai right there. I really like how stylish those screen transitions are. The Gundams flying in, and then we get the super cute SD Gundam eyes. So it's interesting to note that this did come out in 1993. This is actually the second SD Gundam shoot 'em up. The first one being Kidou Senshi Gundam V. So the second SD Gundam bases its events around Zeta Gundam, which is an anime that originally aired in 1985 through 1986. So a good 8 years before the title came out. But if you're familiar with Japanese culture, you'll know that Gundam has been a major part of Japanese geek fandom from basically the late 70s, early 80s on. It's almost one of those things that's culturally ingrained in especially the geek culture of Japan. And we find ourselves fighting two Gapthys, I believe? That's unfair to gang up on us. They've got better mobility than I do. So, let's talk about some of the plus flavors that SD Gundam 2 has. Right off the bat, there's the whole SD aspect of the title itself. Seeing all these mobile suits that you might be familiar with presented in that cute format, I love the look of SD Gundams. So for me, that's a huge plus. Then, if you're a fan of the Gundam lore itself and are familiar with the events of Zeta Gundam, there's that plus as well, watching how the battles unfold in this particular format. Some of the minus flavors, I feel like a lot of the stages have a relatively slow pacing where even on the default difficulty level, you're not fighting many enemies at once. Here, even though we are encountering enemies with a decent weapon equipped, we're basically taking them out before we even see a lot of them. There's also the weapon system. I don't like how you lose your special weapon that's selected with just a single hit. The meter fills fast enough that it doesn't seem like much of a penalty, and it ends up being more of an annoyance than anything else. That said, if you're a fan of cute shoot-em-ups with maybe a great Mecha series tie-in, then this is one to look into. It is a Super Famicom, so a Japanese exclusive, so keep that in mind. And there we have it. SD Kidou Senshi Gundam 2, served up for your enjoyment. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me for Shoot 'em Up Saturday today. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.